Sell crazy someplace else. We're all stocked up here.
Hey everybody, this is Perch. All right, I kind of usually with mail that comes in, I read a little bit of it, and then I kind of, I don't know, I generally read the mail fairly live to all of you because sometimes that creates interesting reactions and everything else. I don't pre-read a lot of the mail, but this one I started to read. It was very compelling is not the word. It's definitely not the word, but I kept reading until I got to the end. So I'm going to read it to you now. And I'm going to try and talk about it, but I don't know if this is really an email to talk about or more something that I want people to think about what it is you're about to hear and kind of what does this mean to you? Does it sound true to you? Does it how does it land? Because I often, when I talk about stuff like this, I often get the reaction of, no, this isn't real. Nobody thinks this way. I get this kind of, no, this can't be true. And well, anyway, let's do it. Dear Perch, this is the second time I've written to your show. Thank you very much for answering my previous mail. You are okay. No, we're going to read this mail. It says, You often defend people inside the comic industry, even though there is a rot that seeps through comics that cannot be excused. This rot takes the form of bad customer behavior, insulting fans, ruining franchises out of spite, and ultimately taking away things people love for no other reason than because they hate your race, gender, politics, or religion. This is what comics have become, and you cannot deny that. So as a result, yes, I would like comics to die. I would rather see no comics being produced ever again from Marvel than for there to be a place for Dan Slott, Tom King, Vita Ayala, and the numerous other people that have called me a Nazi have a place to continue to work. I love comics, and I certainly don't want to see them go. But if the decision is comics keep getting made by those individuals or no comics are made at all, I know which one I'm picking. Maybe it's just time for comics to die. It has been infected by communists and other people who only care about destroying institutions and the things we love. I understand, Perch, that as a retailer, you have a lot of nostalgia and perhaps money wrapped up in this industry. But it's time to let go. There is no value in saving an industry that is so degenerate and so antagonistic to its own customers that they are willing to destroy everything that was built in order to keep insulting you. I know you don't like it when people call you a cuck or a shill for the industry, but the reality is, at the end of the day, if you are pushing for this industry to survive, you are pushing to be abused. Curious to get your take on this. I imagine you will not want to read this on your show. But I am speaking from my heart, and maybe you can respect that. I will get the name. So that's the mail. So if I'm summarizing what's going on there, aside from the kind of weird little insults toward me, yours truly, the mail basically is stating a very simple premise, which is comics have, have people who work within it that are so toxic and so terrible, and the industry continues to hire those people and, in effect, enable them to continue to be toxic and bad, that, the only solution is for the entire thing to hit. Basically, love Spider-Man, but if, Mark Waid is going to be writing Spider-Man, I would rather see no Spider-Man at all. And the sentiment described by the person who wrote this mail, I don't think it's a majority opinion, but it's certainly that it's not like one person who's saying this. Isn't like 3 or 4 crazy people. There's a volume of people that feel this way. And I've struggled with this point of view. The part that I struggle with is not, hey, there's people out here who are lousy people and I don't want to give them my money. I get that. I totally get that. And as I said, consistently, don't give your money to people who don't respect you. Just don't. You're in control of your cash. You owe nobody anything. It's your hard-earned cash. Spend it where you want. And if you don't feel comfortable buying a comic book, buy a creator attacks you, and you are, even you don't actually have to label it. You don't have to prove that you were attacked. All you need as a consumer, as somebody spending money, is to feel not good about your purchase. That's it. If you don't feel good about your purchase, the end. It doesn't need to be more complicated than that. It shouldn't be more complicated than that. I always wholeheartedly, completely believe that you as a consumer should pick what you want to do. And if you don't want to spend the money on something where you don't feel good about it, don't. And if that causes the product to suffer, so be it. That's not really your business. You've taken yourself out of the equation. Whatever else happens is, ultimately a decision for the publisher. But this is a little bit further now. This is basically saying if the industry is willing to hire Tom King, there shouldn't be an industry. That's really what's being described by this mail. And I guess, if this is being an industry shill, then so be it. I'll happily wear this label. But to me, the value of comics, we've done these shows and these bits, and we've shown the numbers, and there's, more than 500 comics being produced in a month. More than 500. I certainly have been annoyed with behavior. I mentioned on this show, David Pepos was a complete and absolute prick. And I'm thoroughly disgusted by his behavior. There are many others. I think, in a lot of ways, I think comics kind of breeds these people. Comics sadly encourages a lot of this behavior. I don't think it's overt. I don't think the publisher's like, hey, go out there and be an asshole. But I do think that there's a certain elitism. There's a certain I'm better than you attitude that comes out of comics. And if I was a psychologist, I'd say a lot of this is because comics was kind of a niche market and, kind of like Dungeons and Dragons and a lot of these other properties where, at once upon a time, if you read comics, you were a nerd and maybe got beat up and maybe, you were not the popular kid. And so now that, the movies have taken over and suddenly these characters are super popular and, suddenly it's there's people are interested in it. Well, now all of a sudden it's popular and a lot of the nerds find themselves in a pretty amazing position. They're interested, hold the lore, work in comics where comics are suddenly popular, or at least the characters are. And so what happens and we see, how many movies have you seen where there's a nerdy kind of outcast kid and they suddenly get popular and they turn into a prick? Because that's human nature. That tends to be what happens. You get a taste of popularity and suddenly you become the person who you hate. You become the bully. You become the person who is excluding others. And that's, I think, what's happened with comics. You have some people, not all people. You've heard the interviews with Sean and Jim Zub and And tons of people. I always like to use Zub because, I mean, Zub is the nicest. He's like the nicest guy in the world. Like you can't be mad at this guy. Like I mean, it's a Canadian in him. Like I think if you bumped into him, he would apologize to you. I mean, he's just a nice guy. And for all the the jerks in comics, and there certainly are some, there are also nice people in comics. Do I want the entire comics industry to vanish because of a couple jerks? No. I'm personally, and this is my own personal opinion, again, as a consumer, you get to decide yourself, whatever you want. I don't root for Marvel's death. Because even though there's a couple individuals there who have been absolute rotten people to fans or to me personally, even though that's happened, I don't want Marvel to go away. I care about those characters. I grew up with those characters. I love those characters. I may stop buying a comic book with a creator that is absolutely terrible to me. I'll give you one heartfelt belief. I have every X-Men comic, all of them, the main line, the limited series, the spinoffs, all of it. I'm a collector. I've got every single one, bagged, boarded, in great shape, slabbed in some cases. If Marvel announced that Pepos was suddenly writing one of the X books, I wouldn't buy it. I'm just being honest with you right now. I would break my run. So I get it. For those of you who have been pushed too far, I get it. I totally do. And as a consumer, that's your decision. But breaking my run, not buying a comic book that's a certain person's on that I just won't support, is completely different than wishing the entire company to go bankrupt. Because I have been around for a long time. I am older. I've seen lots of creators come and go. Many of them. There's I mentioned that I mentioned Byrne before, but there's another comic artist out there, an artist, and this artist flaked on me twice, and I can't stand the guy. He was rude. He flaked. Then he tried to kind of gaslight me into saying it was my fault. He cost me money. And I have no respect for the guy. He absolutely is a con artist. And I will tell you, a lot of the people listening to this show, you like this guy. A lot of you do. People are like, ooh, who's he talking about? No, it was not the artist who was on New X-Men. No, not that guy. Yeah, now I'm going to get to, why are you Voldemorting him? I'm just trying to, look, what I'm trying to convey here, you can either believe it or not, or accept it or not, is this is my personal opinion. The one thing I won't do, and everybody has their own morals and judgments, but one of mine is this. If let's say I don't like Sean Murphy. Let's say a guy I do like, Sean Murphy. Let's say we have a falling out. I don't know, we argue about something. And I stop liking him. I am not going to come on this channel and air my dirty laundry about him. Whenever I've talked about problems and I've mentioned names, I'm responding to public things you've seen. I've got lots of good interactions and bad interactions with different creators. And the bad interactions, if they're private, if they happen to just me, I tend to keep them to myself. Now, I've several of you have written in saying you shouldn't do that because, it could be a cautionary tale for the rest of us. I guess so. I understand that logic. But generally speaking, I think, you should all have the ability to go out and make your own decisions and have good experiences. So if Sean and I had a big argument and a fight and it was personal, I'm not going to come on the show and talk about it. Just not. Probably we wouldn't do more interviews, but I wouldn't do that because I think you all should like or dislike the guy on your own merits. It's your deal. And that's how it's true for everyone. Everyone except Ben Templesmith, who was again one of the nicest guys in the world, and I don't know, I could have the biggest fight with him, and I'm still gonna kiss his ass the next day because he's such an awesome human being. But anyway, Ben Templesmith. By the way, why aren't you getting some of Templesmith's original art? He's got some amazing stuff for sale. You should. Fuck, that guy's just a brilliant creator. Anyway, there's so many good people, but that's the point. To respond to you, the mail writer, if it makes me a industry shill or a cuck to say that I'll put up with the bad in order to get the good, then so be it. I will wear that label proudly. There's too much good in comics to want to burn it all down for the bad people. To put it a different way, somebody like a Tom King, he's not worth it. For me, he's not worth it. He doesn't matter enough to me to want to kill all comics. and a lot of the people who cause troubles or frustrate you or call names or other stuff. I mean, look, I think Dan Slott has a pretty legendary reputation at this point for starting some crap and blocking people and then continuing with the crap behind the block. He does this. I think, Twitter needs to pay Dan Slott some money because single-handedly, he has generated tons of additional accounts of people creating alt accounts and basically driving the volume of Twitter up just so they could see what he's posting behind his block wall. I think that behavior is childish. I think it's dumb. I think it's defeating. I'll use a different example. We interviewed Ron Mars on this channel. Ron Mars has delivered some pretty amazing comics in his career. Comics I love. I love his Silver Surfer run. I like the stuff he did with Ron Lim. I like what he did with Green Lantern. He did all kinds of things. I have very fond memories of Ron Mars's work. In the interview with Ron, he says that he likes to go, he's like, I like to go on Twitter and poke people. I enjoy it. It's entertainment. I don't know. For me, that's not good entertainment for me. I don't understand that. I understand it can be entertainment for others, but for me, I'd rather be doing other things with my time. But I'm not Ron. He can do what he wants. The fact that he's doing something that I don't agree with, poking people out of boredom, does this mean that I should wish all comics to be over? That Marvel should go out of business because one guy? No, I don't. That just seems absurd to me. And this gets suggested around a lot by people. The industry must die. But the reality is, whether they're people I don't care for, like I mentioned here, or people I do. Again, I love, Ben Templesmith. Jim Zub, Sean Murphy. I love these guys. They've been good. Brian Edward Hill, great guy. Brett Booth. Tons of amazing people. I could go on and on and on. But they're not the reason that I want comics to survive. I love comics. I love reading them, and I believe always that there's amazing stories in our future. There will be. Do you think a couple of the there's some bad people in comics, and for whatever dumbass reason, the publisher allows these people to get away with this stuff and hires these troublemakers? It's a terrible decision on the part of the publisher. I still don't want all of comics to die. There's too many stories. It's not about the people. There's too many stories I love to ever wish that. So I won't do it. I'm sorry that the bad behavior and problems have gotten so big that to you, dear letter writer, you've gotten so angry at what's gone on that you just want everything to end. It's very sad to me. Comics are meant to uplift. They're meant to be powerful. They're meant to ignite our imaginations. For this to be the result is sad. And I think I have no illusions that this will change any hearts and minds. But if you are a comic creator and you're on social media and you're thinking, hey, I was bullied in high school for comics, but now I get to write them, and it turns out comics are popular right now, so happy days for me. And you see yourself like, I'm going to go shit on somebody. I'm going to go take a post out of context. I'm going to go create some drama. I'm going to go stir some stuff up. I'm going to go say, you don't need to, if you believe in this politician, then don't buy my books. You're not allowed. How about don't? Because for a lot of us who love comics, love the story, love the history, have been all in on this stuff for a while, we just are looking for good stories now and better days ahead. That's what we want. We have the deeply held belief that the best days of comics are in front of us. We have the belief that there is an amazing story waiting to be found. So no, I don't want comics to die, and I don't think any fan of comics wants comics to die. And I grant you, a lot of people say, I wish comics would die. They don't mean it. It's not meant to be taken literally. But to the person who wrote this, wrote in to you, the letter writer, I believe you. I believe you do want things to go away. You convinced me. And so I'm asking you to remember the things that you loved in comics. And I challenge you. It is worth the effort. 500 plus books in a month. Find the one. Find it. Right now, a lot of people are really enjoying Cobra Commander and Duke and, this Energon universe. Okay. If you grew up with Spider-Man, you love Spider-Man, you would love to have a good Spider-Man. But, we're stuck with this MJ Paul bullshit. Still doesn't mean you want comics to die. Because one day, so we've all seen it, if you just look back over the last 30, 40 years, one day, the writer on Spider-Man, doing a bunch of this nonsense, won't be the writer on Spider-Man. He'll go off and get a different job or be rolled out or whatever. A new writer will come in, and who knows? It's better for me to keep hope alive that good stories will come. I think that's it's not a bad thing to do. It's okay to hope for things. Anyway, I'm sorry it's pushed people this far. It clearly has. If there's one wake-up call I can give the industry, it's listen to this person's mail. Don't listen to my commentary, it's bullshit anyway, but listen to this person's mail. This is what's going on. This is the absolute frustration that is building up by not enforcing your social media policies, or by not communicating well, or by just letting things go and, rather than have an uncomfortable conversation. You have people actively hoping the entire industry burns down because you have people working on your books who have so crossed the line that somebody is willing to give up ever seeing another Superman story again in favor of burning it into ash and keeping people from ever touching it again. Seems sad to me. Thanks for listening.